Moray v'Rabbi Sherer, welcome back to part 2, round 2, as we take a no-holds-barred look, an emes cook, be'arba inayim, your 2 eyes and my 2 eyes, and the emes, at the tremendous tragedy, the tragedy that was the Rabbi Sherer doctrine in terms of how to deal with the moral climate in America, the politicians and the issues, etc. Rabbi Sherer was a great man, a tzaddik. He's in a billion times a higher place in Gan Eden than I can ever hope to be. But and it's so important at this late stage in the devolving culture that we have contributed so much to, that we take an objective look and we recognize the problems and the source of the problem. And I want to illustrate this with personal asides in my life and personal things that happened that I can demonstrate to you, black on white, that, as I did already, that this wasn't the das Torah of the Gedolei Yisrael, of the Mayetzes, that they were shielded and not told a lot of things. And for whatever the reason is, it seems to be, I can only speculate, that Rabbi Moshe felt that he wasn't hearing these things with the proper backbone and emphasis, and he more or less understood Rabbi Sherer, and he probably thought, listen, agudah Yisrael has to deal with the politicians and the issues for geld, for yeshiva, and for other quality of life issues, Shemir, Shabbos issues, religious liberty of freedom, and v'cholu. And therefore, to ask Rabbi Sherer to be the Ari, the lion. But tragically, there wasn't another counter-organization that was doing this. And therefore, occasionally when Rabbi Moshe was apprised of a situation, like in Dade County in 77, he responded like a lion, sending personal letters in agudah stationery in English signed with his name, Moses Feinstein, importuning them to vote against the first gay rights bill. And then when I came to him through the agency of Rabbi Fakey Moskowitz with a letter which I and 2 of my associates crafted in depth, he responded with a strong letter, even after it was watered down by Mordechai Tendler and the Jacobs boys or whoever, allegedly, upon belief. I think that's what happened, and it was still super stark. Agudah Yisrael told people when Rabbi Eidenson called up about certain gay things, he was told, "We don't support hate. Yeah, we got to be very careful what we do." Rabbi Moshe didn't have a problem writing in a letter, Lahares Goli Luchal Ha'amim, to show manifestly to everybody, She'am Hashem Soinei Toeiva. We hate, we loathe abomination. And that's the Chofetz Chaim I told you that he brings down at the very beginning of the first Siman in Shulchan Aruch, on the glass of the Ramah. Don't be concerned with those who make fun. And I told you there in the Sharet Tzion, I think it is, he brings down Tachlis Sinasi Nasi. He brings down a posek to fight, to hate. Wui the Chofetz Chaim, wui David HaMelech. They didn't know the agudah Sherer doctrine Shita. Rabbi Sherer should have explained it to them. Listen to this, and then I'll tell you my sis about solos. Here, listen. Open up your books, Kinderlach. Open up your Sherer book, your Rabbi Sherer book. Knowing his limits. It's on page 293, another aspect of Rabbi Sherer's success with public officials, that he never asked them to do anything improper or that was beyond their authority. Consequently, on page 294, he never wasted time trying to convince a politician to do anything he would view as political suicide and avoid placing politicians in the uncomfortable position of having to refuse him. How much of that was for the discomfort of the politician, and how much of that was for the discomfort of Rabbi Sherer, that it should be on the record, the politician should know he could refuse the leader of the Jews. Think about that. It's a subtle philosophical point. Think about that. It's a psychological point, but think about that, and I'll illustrate what I mean. His goal in any negotiation was always to make it as easy as possible for the other side to say yes. Thus, he avoided all discussions of philosophical issues that, first, have philosophical and talk about moral, about which he knew he had no chance of convincing the other side. Some of his most important relationships with liberal Democrats. Again, they're burying Rabbi Sherer in this. They're burying him, and Yosem Rosen is burying him. And so I Bell is saying yes to them, and whoever else read it from agudah who approved this airbrushed version of events. Because if this garbage, this bad, evil smelling stuff that's in here, that already makes them guilty as sin, amish. Could you imagine what they left out, what they airbrushed? You understand? His most important relationships with liberal Democrats like Senator Teddy Kennedy's view on a host of social issues such as abortion could not have been further from Rabbi Sherer's. Listen to a quote now from the Oisvo Stephen Solarz, the late unlamented, who I ran against in 1984 because of his stand on the social issues. Listen to this. Rabbi Sherer was very upset. They were very upset in the corridors of power that this Jaime Yehuda Levin came off the reservation, programmed by Rabbi Victor Miller. Who's Rabbi Victor Miller? He only had a small little shul in Flatbush there, a tiny little place. He's disagreeing. He's making shittas against agudah Yisrael. He's having Yehuda Levin run. What's this? And when I called to Rav Eli Yisrael to try to explain to him, so Rav Eli Yisrael told me, "Was kann ich euch sagen? Hat dein Deberziner Rav und dein Rabbi Victor Miller. Kann ich gar nicht sagen." Yeah, the same Rabbi Victor Miller that helped get out the Svei family when Rav Eli was quite young and saved his life when he went from Slobodka to Kovna to speak to the ambassador, the American ambassador, and he got visas. Rabbi Victor Miller, who was a Dor Fria, at nicht gewusst besser wie sie. Yeah. I'll leave that aside. Listen to this quote. He did not push when he was not where he was not going to get anywhere, said Stephen Solarz, who represented a liberal Brooklyn constituency. Yeah, even this is false. Stephen Solarz represented a liberal Brooklyn constituency at Park Slope or something like that. He also represented Orthodox Borough Park and Williamsburg when I ran against him, the most densely populated Orthodox Jewish community in the country. But this Rosenblum, the quasi-shakran, doesn't put in. If he would put in both a liberal and also densely populated Orthodox Jewish community. But no. Because we have to airbrush, spin the facts. It should be exactly. Quote from Solarz, Rabbi Sherer had so many fish to fry. Why endanger the relationship by forcing an issue like abortion? Listen to the Chil Hashem, abortion, Ritzicha, Shofech Dam Adam Ba'adam Dami Yeshofech, Paskin the Rambam like Rabbi Yishmael Sanhedrin, it's for Goyim. Allah has come for Jews, like Toeiva says as far. How do we know abortion is also for a Jew? Is it prohibited? Is there anything that is permitted, that is prohibited for a Gentile, that's permitted for a Jew? We know it from a Kal V'chomer. Abortion, that in Torah there's an article for a Moshe saying that the shirish of abortion is leisirzach. Rabbi Moshe was, hell on wheels. He was so stark against abortion. This carried over to the way that Solarz was so close to Rabbi Sherer should have this idea that Rabbi Sherer couldn't give more than a little lip service. Before we read, they gave a statement. By the way, if you read that statement for the Moetzes Gedolei Torah on abortion, it's so milquetoast, it has no value, it had no gravitas, it had no oomph. 98% of abortions, which would be asa, the point at which the Jews and the Gentiles disagree is minuscule. But this was an excuse to do almost nothing. To be milquetoast, because we worry we would be imposing the halacha on the country and all this other claptrap. Baba Mises. Delusions of self-grandeur. We're going to impose halacha on the country. Please, give me a break. Here, by not pushing these issues where agreement was impossible, Rabbi Sherer presented an extremely fruitful relationship with Solarz. And what did he get from him? He got from him like this: a bill to prevent Orthodox employees from losing their paid vacation days for Shabbos and Yom Tov. Very good. The House Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs, he did a lot to get out the Syrian Jews. Very good. Then it goes into a whole 2 or 3 page story with pictures of how he helped out a certain Jewish mishpacha from Syria. It's gewaldig. Now let me give you the rest of the story firsthand. Your humble servant, the harbinger of Hashkafa. the Talmud and the water carrier of the Gedolim of yesteryear, Rav Avigdor Miller, and the Kasher of Rabbi Levin, Rabbi Sherer, and indirectly of R Moshe Feinstein, who said Lamal Sisul Kol Yemei Hearing Shall Gay Rights Harus Kol Yilchal Am Shama Sem Shani Tevi, which was Yehuda Levin. I was the capitalist for the letter, and I was the one who feared this to millions of people on TV and in the testimony and Congress in all kinds of ways. So I'm telling you, I ran against solas. And I made this a big focal point of the issue. And guess what, Rabbi Sherer? You didn't want to confront them on this because you didn't want to be told, no, I'll father for the covenant of Klal Yisrael. But very interesting. Yehuda Levin made it an issue. And guess what? Solas took his name for the next 6 years from 84 until 90 when he was redistricted out. And the Hispanic woman took his place. She's still in there today. Guess what? Solas took his name off of the gay rights legislation because he saw that the Heinis were voting against him 90% in Williamsburg and 65% in Borough Park. So Rabbi Sherer said, "Upgefreckte bedidi have ovda." You could by standing up to them, the way you stood up to Mayor Bean for geld, that you knew how. But to stand up for Hashem's kvod shemayim, for morality on something which is leading to kosuk subel zocha, that brought a mabel, that you didn't. The Sherer doctrine, throw it in the garbage pail. It was wrong. Now let me give you another example. Let's go weiter. Let's talk about the next paragraph. Open your books, Kindler. Turn to page 294. The last paragraph. A solar stature in the house increase. Okay, no, we said that already. 1 second. I'm sorry. Correction. Please turn, everybody, to page 296. Rabbi Sherer's relationship with Chuck Shumer, another young congressman representing the liberal Brooklyn constituency, was in many respects similar to his relationship with Solas. Translation. Lek, chamfa. Let's see, geld, things that we can get that are not hard for Shumer or Solas to do because it doesn't go according to the liberal sensitivities on moral issues. And the other things, let's agree to disagree. Listen to this. From Schumer's first election, as a boy 30 years old, Rabbi Sherer reached out to him. Even though his district did not have a large Jewish population at that time, I'm not so sure that was true. It was one of the largest in the country. It was Flatbush, it was Midwood. Bubba says, even this is false. The first meeting, remember, Shumer established a bond that was never broken. With respect to Schumer's liberal social agenda, you see, they have to fight for this. They're planting a poison pill to brainwash you. You know the way you brainwash? When you have a big embarrassment, like a person goes out with a Zayna, and it's a secret. He goes secretly with a Zayna, and he's discovered. So you know what they do? His PR people will tell him, you know what? It's going to come out in the newspapers. You had a hidden paramour, a hidden thing, and you're being Mizana. So in other words, to defang this, to desensitize it, you take the Zayna and go out tomorrow in one of the biggest restaurants in New York that all the paparazzi should see you and take pictures and put it in post page 6. So already you dulled the thing. Lahavdil, but this is the shtus, the stinkerei that they're doing here in this book. They call it out, liberal agenda, and they fight for it. And then we, Jaime Klutzes, say, oh, it made a lot of sense with Rabbi Sherer. It was very, very bright, very intelligent. With respect to Schumer's liberal social agenda, they had a respectful disagreement. Those are Schumer's words. Respectfully disagreed. Rabbi Sherer did not allow the respectful disagreement. Again, they put it twice in quotation marks. He's burying himself. He's embarrassing Rabbi Sherer's disproved, errant Sherer doctrine on social liberalism, and he's repeating it. He didn't allow this to stand in the way of listening. Schumer was one of the major movers of legislation against discrimination in the workplace. And he helped out for at-risk teams, and he helped out for this, the Iraq war, Of course he did. You know why? Because Rabbi Sherer never put it to him stark on the morality. So let me tell you, Maisa. I went down to testify in front of a congressional subcommittee on a law when they wanted to make, I was invited by Roscoe Bartlett, who was the head of the subcommittee, the Republican head, but he was a minority. Then Congress was controlled by the Democrats, and Schumer was there, a big knocker there. And Schumer was burning angry because Roscoe Bartlett from Maryland, a conservative Republican, invited me to testify that they shouldn't use RICO statutes. RICO was for racketeering, that when groups stand outside an abortion clinic, that should be like racketeering, and they should be arrested under RICO statutes. You hear? For protesting for the life of the preborn, which is incumbent upon B'nai Noach and Kal V'chomer Yid. So Schumer called me over and he says, Rabbi Levin, when the Bishop of Brooklyn wants to testify and he knows I'm going to be upset, He speaks to me before, and you, meaning parentheses, he didn't say, you puny little, fat little Jaime, you come off the reservation? Who the blank are you? And then he tells me the coup de grace. And Rabbi Sherer, very close with, never made an issue to me about abortion. Who has to give a din v'cheshbon in the Olam HaEmes that this happened? Me or Rabbi Sherer? So let me tell you another mice. You say, Levin, you don't know a millionth of what Rabbi Sherer knows about how to do with politicians. So you don't know what you're talking about. He could have lost all the things that Sherer did, that Shumer did, or Solas did, for the Syrian Jews, for the money for yeshivos, that Shumer didn't do so much, and the chayvos. And when Shumer was in trouble because he made a bad liberal vote on the war in Iraq, Rabbi Sherer, it says in the book, went around to help out Shumer. He was helping Ratava, this pager, so today he can help him get to where he is now, the minority leader. He's making a massive Chillul Hashem and turning off millions of religious Gentiles across the country with this swarmy New York, disgusting garbage. Thank you, Rabbi Sherer. Was got this, and for sure was das Torah what you did, and I'm sicher you spent hours discussing with Rabbi Moshe Rav Yankov, even though I'm giving you quite fakert information firsthand. I tell you, I've said this myself a few times, it's kedai to say it again. The Gentiles contacted me when Roberta Achtenberg was being considered as Deputy Undersecretary of Housing, a sub-cabinet position. She needed Senate approval. It's the same Roberta Achtenberg that went in an open coupe in a car during the gay parade in San Francisco, the highest level Mishkav Zacha lesbian at that time in the 1990s. So the early 90s. So they contacted me and they asked me, could you please use your Jewish contacts to speak to Senator D'Amato, who officially got elected on the Republican and conservative line, who couldn't have been elected without conservatives, but he was moving to the left considerably on the gay issue because he was concerned about re-election. Can you get somebody to speak to me? He should vote against approval of this lesbian. I contacted Rabbi Zweibel. He told me, Rabbi Sherer says, Loy Medalef, the Shishita is in the book. He's not going to agree, and therefore it's a waste of time. And I don't want they should say no to me. Of course, Lishma, it had nothing to do with ego, Avada, I'm sure. He could have been refused 1 billion times off himself. He was very self-effacing. It was only for the Kleisel, and it might very well be. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I don't know. But I don't know. I ask him Mechila if I'm saying the wrong thing. But I'll tell you this much. I put on my radio program Michael Long, who is still the chairman of the Conservative Party, who was closest to Al D'Amato, who would introduce Al D'Amato when he won for Senate re-election. Not the Republican Party chairman introduced him, Mike Long, because he provided the margin of victory. Mike Long said it's a tremendous mistake. I attack Al D'Amato, and I'm super close with him. If you don't attack him, he knows you've ceded, you've surrendered this ground, and then he gets more and more liberal. So who should I trust in knowing politics and how to deal with the politicians more? Rabbi Sherer with his Sherer doctrine of benign neglect, passivism, don't ask for something that you're not going to get, only fight like a lion for guilt for the yeshivos. Or Michael Long, who understood the social issues and who dealt with him and who knew you have to come out in the newspapers against him. So let me give you another ice. Again, I'm showing you from Michael Long that Rabbi Sherer is wrong, not just from the Levin. Now let me give you something else. The newspaper, or Business Week, they had a McLaughlin or something who wrote an article that after a little-known guy from Brooklyn, Rabbi Lou Y. Levin, ran against the powerful Stephen Solos, who was being considered, if Mondale won, he was being considered a Secretary of State position, Solos. The good friend of Rabbi Sherer, who never bothered. We had a respectful disagreement on morality. Let's not discuss it. Let's not muddy the waters. So guess what it says? It says on Solos that after Levin ran from him, he out-Reaganed the Reagan White House in fighting against Daniel Ortega, who he had originally written a Dear Commandante Hanifa letter to Solos. He became a big anti-communist because I brought it up in debates on the Barry Farber program and in my campaign and on the Spivak Brenner program. He made sister hospital agreements with Laniato Hospital. He made the yarmulke bill in Congress that you can wear a yarmulke in the army. They can't tell you not to. And it says he poured in more money than ever before to the Orthodox Jewish organizations throughout his district. So who is right? Rabbi Sherer on one side, the vaunted Askin who knows so much, or the little pipsqueak, the 30-year-old Yehuda Levin. This is not gaiva. What I did, I was empowered, authorized, I was an automaton, a robot of Rabbi Victor Miller, and people who understood more with Seichel and with Das Torah in their pinky than with all due respect in this Indian of morality in Rabbi Sherer with his ganze Gestalt, with his whole goof. That's it. So isn't it time now for agudah to reconsider the Chazarai? Enough of this. The heter, if Rabbi Sherer was alive now, I promise you, I believe that Munish Shlemi, he would hug me and kiss me for what I'm saying, because it's ameliorating some of the suffering that he has upstairs, that he made such a tragic mistake. And if he could and would and should come back, and if he would be here now and see the results of not having stood up against all these mamzerim and these monsters and the legislation they created, he would be telling Rav David Zweibel, that he would be telling the Katkan Funim of Agudah, the tweeters, he would be telling them, even at this late stage, you got to fight. The only thing that's going to stop Mario Cuomo of Mezuzahgate, the only thing is to fight him, to make it uncomfortable. But as long as he sees we give him mezuzahs and we clap for him and everything else, it's terrible, Rabbi Side. That's why, moving right along, in our remaining 9 minutes, we have this article, the Jewish Press is Gewaldig, and I want you to know, my subscription expired, and I'm going to clean neder. In the next day or two, I'm going to renew my subscription to the Jewish Press for 2 years for $80. I don't have a lot of money. It's very hard for me, but it's so important to give them chizik. Look at this headline, Rabbi Side. Look at this headline the Jewish Press is writing. Could you ever see such a thing in Hamodia, in Yated, in Mishpacha, in Ami? Governor Cuomo acts unilaterally and immorally. A headline. They're saying they're facing down power, and they're showing the tremendous schmutz that Governor Cuomo, since he couldn't get legislation passed, he is trying to do it by executive order, and it goes through chapter and verse. In this article of Culture War Dispatches, Dispatch from the Culture War Front by Benjamin Feinberg on page 20 of this week's July 13th, the Misporim Jewish Press. Governor Cuomo is issuing immoral and unconstitutional executive actions, executive orders involving transgenders. He's prohibiting New York State from contracting with entities, including schools, that means yeshivos, baby, that support discrimination against LGBTs. Oh, yeah, I can't wait until push comes to shove and they take away the money from the yeshivos. Levin, you're crazy, you're going to survive. Enough. We get breadcrumbs and pittances, and because of that, we kiss up the Cuomos with mezuzahs and klaf. We're kalafters to do this. Shame on us. Where's Kvod Shemayim? Take the billionaires. David Lichteinstein, $1.7 billion according to Google. Reuben Strong, $1.5 billion. And this and that. We have billionaires and millionaires. Let's go and beg them for money. Do whatever we have to hunt for them, kiss them, honor them, the whole pack of them, and stop the breadcrumbs, a $50,000 check that we have to hunt for them. Cuomo was in a big race with Cynthia Nixon. She's a left-wing lesbian, former TV actress, in a primary. So what's Cuomo's problem? Is there any suffix he's going to beat her? He's going to beat her handily. But if she gets more than 20 or 30 points, and the last one, Zephyr Teachout, who did the same thing to him, and she got a lot of points. How is he going to run for president? The Democrats won't look at him. So he's moving super to the left with executive orders and everything. And if, God forbid, the Senate is taken over in this election in November, the state Senate that hangs by 1 or 2 votes, it becomes Democratic, then Cuomo has free range to pass every novella that passed this year in the Assembly on transgender, on Mishkav Zachar, on abortion. You know, he wants a call back into a special session. They're out until the end of the year. He's calling back. He wants for a special session to pass a radical abortion bill that would allow abortions up to the moment of birth. Can you imagine a fully formed baby in the 3rd trimester, Ritzicha, sticking things into the birth canal and killing the baby with chemicals, with knives, crushing its skull and sucking its brains out. This Ritzeach, and saying that it's no longer criminal, and that if a baby lives in a botched abortion, you don't have to give it medical care. This is Ritzicha, this is Hitlerism. I'm telling you, when you mention Cuomo, you have to say Ritzeach, maybe you have to say Yamach Shemoy. It's Shreklich. And this is who they're busy confident. That's if they make kais with ksubel zacha. They brought a model to the world. But the Sherer doctrine is, they should tell with us. We can't. We have to talk and we have to speak out. We have to do. but defensive, not offensive. Not we have to be an or la'amim. No. Is it so poshut that in America, the beautiful, we have such latitude, we don't have to be an or la'amim? The only reason was the gullahs. But the gullahs is gullahs light now, L-I-T-E. Look at the conspicuous consumption of the Jews. Look at everything we're doing. Rabbi Say, time doesn't permit you to go into every bit of the immorality that Cuomo is doing. But by the way, they're forcing in health insurance. In health insurance, they're forcing the health insurance, they're going to give them fertility treatments. They can't discriminate. So when a transgender, a schmutz, a lesbian, a does wants infertility treatments, whatever it is, they got to do it. A big price to pay. By the way, you can get in big trouble in a hospital if you won't want to sleep in the same room with a transgender, and eventually with the bathrooms of the transgender, the locker rooms. It's happening through Cuomo's executive orders here, Rabbi Say, refusing to use a transgender's personal legal name. In other words, if Bruce Jenner is Bruce because he's a man, but he wants to be called Caitlin, and you happen to call him Bruce, they'll throw the book at you. Denying the use of restroom or other facilities consistent with a person declared as opposed to biological gender. I think I'm a lady, so I can go into the ladies' room even though I'm a mushchas man. Thank you very much, Governor Cuomo. Let's give him some more PR and take some more pictures with him, post it in our good calendars, Rev David's wife. I didn't do it, he tells me. I didn't do it to your part because you didn't do it. Let's see the next year's our good calendar, what they're going to put in pictures of Cuomo. Continuing on page 22. Dispatch from the Culture Wars. I told you about the special station. Okay. I want to bring to your attention another fantastic article. A fantastic article in this week's Jewish Press, which is why I'm such a big chassid, and I say you absolutely can use MISA money if you have to. It's so important that this paper doesn't go under, that they have readers that appreciate this. You should send them letters to the editor. Look at this. Torah, not Toeiva, should come forth from Israel by Yonasan Teleki. It's an op-ed piece on page 10. And it answers David Lichteinstein, who says the Shmuley Batech light idiot dumbbell argument. There's all kinds of things that are Toeiva in the Torah. So if you read this article, he shows you that the Toeiva that's referred to by homosexuality, he brings Chazal and he brings other psukim to show there's a special category of Toeiva, the square root of Toeiva. Toeiva of Toeiva, even by sexual immorality, is homosexuality, David Lichteinstein. And so it says when Danny Denon, the Oisvarf ambassador from Israel to America, he marched in the homosexual parade in the name of the country of Israel. There was only one other country that marched from all the Ummah Ha'olam. And he writes a whole article about this. I commend you very, very much to read this. Marav Rabbi Say, in the remaining moments, we already gave a kriya shame to Rabbi Fakey Moskowitz. What I didn't know was that Fakey Moskowitz is not a from birth. He's not an FFP, even though I read and I heard that he used to have a long beard and dress very rabbinic, but he's a Baal Tshuva. And then at some point he went to Lakewood and he dressed very rabbinic, and then he got schmutz jobs of some sort. And he also writes for the Forward, where he writes all kinds of criticisms on Frum Yidden. And he writes that his child at 6 years old is transgendering. So you understand he's a sicko already. This is Fakey Moskowitz. The question is, if he has a thing from Lakewood, why doesn't Lakewood Yeshiva, if he has a smicha from them, any kind of rabbinic thing, why don't they put out advertisements? Aaron Kotler, shout out to Aaron Kotler. Nothing you can't do. You can't do anything about him. You can control Hershkowitz and everything else politically, but to do something about Fakey Moskowitz, you can't do. Mary say there's a lot more about Sliwa and Felder, and I don't have time. But people say you have to show just love for Jews, like Rav Aaron from Bells and everything else. It's all good in the present time. You have to show when a Jew is Michal Shabbos, maybe, or stuffs like that. Maybe you can say a Tinek Shenishbu. You can't say a het of Tinek Shenishbu on something arayos that we understand this. It's not a choik, like the idiot Patech wants to say homosexuality is a choik. It's anatomically and biologically incorrect. We understand this, the way the body was designed. It's not a choik, that it's schmutz, that even Avodah Zarah religions were anti-homosexuality. So therefore, there's nothing to love here. It's a mitzvah to be mefarsim what's done wrong and to rectify. All the Nevi'im filled with stuff of self-criticism of the Jewish people and naming names and taking on Kahanim and all the stuff. And that's why I love Rabbi Sherer. He's a lichtig ruin Gan Eden, but the doctrine that he did is used by the agudah today to the nth degree. And if he was alive, he would tell you no. That's why I'm telling you no. Rabbi Yehuda, this is Yehuda Levin. Spread the word. Please spread the word. View the videos if you have a heta on the internet. If agudah hasn't had to go on the internet now, even though they were hell on wheels against it. So I also have a heta, and I had the heta from Rabbi Victor Miller, Marav Rabbi Sai, Agud and Tamid, and we should be zeichet to the geula and fixing things up.